Now, there's always an awful lot to talk about on this show, and I'm very pleased to say that we're now going to talk about an awful lot of things with Esther Krakue. Esther, welcome back. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Welcome back to your regular slot now. I'm looking at an email that I've just received from one of my retail people that send me emails from time to time saying, Halloween at home this year? Well, where else are you going to be doing it? I mean, there's not going to be much trick-or-treating going on. Prepare to scare yourself silly, they say. Make your own haunted house.
Oh, gosh.
I mean,
no, I'm sorry. I'm not that invested in Halloween.
I'm really not that invested in Halloween either, but it is going to be a pretty scary time, apparently, according to the government.
It's more American than anything. I hardly see trick-or-treaters in this country.
You really don't. I mean, they've tried to make it into a massive thing, but I'm not really buying it. But the bonfire nights have all been cancelled. You know, fireworks have all been cancelled. Poor old Sadiq Khan has now said that he can't organise a firework display because it might be dangerous for people to catch, because we're outdoors and it's really cold. Yeah. And therefore, somehow it might be a wrong thing. But let's kick off with Trump versus Biden, because it's been an interesting week. There's been a lot of rallies. It's been quite good-natured. I haven't really heard anything terrible being said by Trump. But of course, it's been also dominated by this ridiculous row over the story in the New York Post about Hunter Biden and his connections with the Ukraine, and lots of allegations being thrown around. Yeah,
and emails being leaked and all the rest of it. The whole Trump and Biden thing, it just this week is very crucial for both of them, but especially Trump, because he has a lot of ground to make up. Obviously, now they've set the debate, and they're saying they're going to mute microphones.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work exactly.
But then it's not a debate. It's not a debate, right? The nature of a debate is to go back and forth. That's what people tune into. I think both of them need to show a bit more restraint. Yeah. I'm very interested to see who the moderators are going to be for this particular debate, but it's very crucial for both of them. Yeah. I don't think the microphone thing is like.
It's not critical, but I suppose the problem is that there are some. It might actually help Trump, because there were some who said after the last one, and even Nigel Farage said that he might have been a little bit too over enthusiastic about interrupting, because he just wanted to set Biden off on his heels and just not let him have an opportunity to say anything, which at times didn't look great.
But I think one thing. Muting microphones will become social media fodder. So if you have Trump popping off and it's kind of like a DJ Khaled moment at the MTV Awards like 10 years ago. I'm pretty sure you don't remember. Unfortunately, that was my generation.
I don't know.
Yeah, but he was just going off about how he's the greatest, and then they muted his microphone and he was still going off. Right. And that became a social media meme moment. Right. You don't want that, Trump, because people already take the mickey out of you anyway.
Well, the other thing that Trump might do is he remember, as he did against Hillary Clinton, he started walking around. Do you remember? And he walked at one point. He actually appeared behind her, which was quite weird and strange.
Yeah, like a ninja.
Very, very odd. But I suppose, again, he has to be careful. But you're right. It sort of depends on who's moderating it and what the point system is going to be. But he seems to be catching up with Biden a little bit. And Biden's own people are now saying, let's not take anything for granted. Let's go out and vote, Because, I mean, the big vote is going to be in one or two or maybe three states. The rest of it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. Because of the weird way the system works, it doesn't matter how many people vote for Biden in California. The whole of California can vote for him. It's still just one state.
One state, yeah. I think that's the beauty of the electoral college system. I really admire the sort of the political system in the US, even though it's a bit of a.
Do you think that's better? Then do you prefer the fact that it's state by state rather than by
definitely,
numbers?
Absolutely. I think that's it makes sense, because that's the nature of a union. Everyone should have an equal voice. I think, like you said, Trump only he needs 3 states: Pennsylvania, Ohio,
Michigan. Probably.
I think Pennsylvania, because of the fracking thing, I think it's a pretty safe bet for him. Ohio, farmers, we'll see. Yeah. And Michigan.
Well, I mean, I think he got Ohio last time because Hillary didn't even bother going there.
Yeah, exactly.
She just thought it was in the bag, so thought there's no reason to go.
And Biden has the disadvantage that Hillary didn't, in the sense that he's not as unlikable as Hillary, but he inspires zero passion.
Yeah. I think every Democrat that I speak to says, well, we know he's not a great candidate, but of course we have to vote for him.
He's not alive; he's a corpse.
Well, he doesn't seem terribly active. Let's put it that way.
I just call him the corpse.
Yeah, but of course, a lot of people think that if he did win, Kamala Harris would then more or less become the de facto president after a very short period of time.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that, this is where the Democrats have shot themselves in the foot a little bit, because they chose the most unlikable candidate for the black community. And I'm assuming now they're trying to pass off what it really is, an Indian woman as a black woman. Yeah. So that's not very good in terms of trying to, sweep up the minorities they were hoping to do with that move.
That brings us back in a way to Black Lives Matter, because it's unclear to me that if you are not actually black, African American, or Caribbean based. Are you involved in Black Lives Matter? I mean, if you're what we would call an Asian woman or an Asian man from the Indian subcontinent, are you part of Black Lives Matter, or is that not allowed?
Yeah, I mean that's the kind of I suppose cognitive dissonance of this movement. But if you're looking at Black Lives Matter just in terms of its popularity in the US, it has plummeted since the whole riots and the protests and everything. It has really plummeted. So again, that's another thing that's shot the Democrats in the foot, because that's something they were hoping to go off of, the whole rile of this I suppose supercharged identity politics game. So
and
that's a huge worry.
Yeah, because I think the people kind of in the middle are fed up with the extremists, aren't they? And they just want to go back to where it was before, where the left wing wasn't particularly left wing. I mean, I was always amazed when I was in America in the sort of 80s, that America was not really left wing or right wing. It was, I mean, both the Democrats and the Republicans, you couldn't choose much between them, really. It was all just a question of which personality you preferred. Yeah,
and now it's more polarized, which I suppose I prefer, because you can really distinguish between candidates. It's a lot clearer, but at the same time, it's more extreme. One thing people have to realize is that no law enforcement have endorsed Joe Biden, which is a huge problem.
That is
following the summer of rioting, basically. So
so it's going to be fascinating to watch over the next couple of weeks, but as I say, we'll be bringing it live to everybody on the night as well, so that'll be interesting. But I don't think, I'm being told that we probably won't get any kind of result at all until maybe a couple of days later, maybe 3 days later. And in fact, I saw a story the other day that said that Trump, even if he loses, can somehow run again. I'm not quite sure how that works.
Yeah, that I don't know how. I mean, have they looked through the Constitution? I don't think that's exactly how it works.
I mean, I would imagine if Donald Trump loses, he'll just if he decides he wants to try and fight the fact that it was an illegal election or something, he might do that. But he'll probably just go away and go back and make some more money, won't he?
Yeah, he'll just go into meet. I mean, if Trump loses, Fox News should be very worried.
Well, there's a lot of talk that he's going to start up his own channel, isn't there? But we shall see. Now, he's a man, of course, who's been accused of all manner of things regarding women. Let's talk about John Leslie, who's on the front pages today. You're probably too young to remember John Leslie when he was a Blue Peter presenter.
Yeah, definitely.
But this is a guy who was outed wrongly, as it turns out, by Matthew Wright on the Matthew Wright show on TV as the man who had been supposedly accused of raping Ulrika Johnson. She'd written about it in her book, but she never said who it was. Now, it turns out it wasn't John Leslie, but the fact that he had been deliberately outed on television, his life has never really been the same. And I mean, while I'm not going to say that he's not a seedy character, because I think he is, he's in court yesterday getting cleared of something that was supposed to have happened 12 years ago.
Of grabbing
and
someone's boobs,
and I mean, who knows whether he did it or not. The fact is, he's been found not guilty, so we should say that he didn't do it. But imagine how that must feel. I mean, I mean, no matter how horrible the guy is, it must be awful to have to go through something like that for that length of time.
And the jury only deliberated for 23 minutes. I mean, that is quite telling. This is my issue with. I suppose this goes back to the whole Me Too movement.
Yeah.
But this is my issue with, the fact that the media has no boundaries and lacks sensitivity when it comes to sexual assault allegations on both sides.
Right.
I really don't think that you should be able to publish sexual assault allegations on any public figure. And that's not to say that if they're found guilty, you shouldn't do that. Yeah, you should do it when they're found guilty, because honestly, it's just so unfair.
Right.
And it really scares me, because I have a brother. If he was supposed to be sort of a top level athlete and was falsely accused of sexual assault, that's the end of his career.
Well, because it doesn't, I mean, regardless of whether you get found innocent, it tends to stick with the person, doesn't it? That's the problem. So you would favour a kind of a system whereby if there's an accusation made, both parties remain anonymous until the end.
Exactly. And I think, that's really difficult, because the media like to jump on anything. And obviously it's very saucy when you out someone as effectively a degenerate.
Yeah.
But that is something that I really think we should just draw the line on.
Well, I mean, without getting into the detail of it, we saw that in Parliament, didn't we, when an MP was accused of rape by somebody. And then there were all sorts of people saying, well, we must suspend this person.
Yeah, he must leave Parliament.
Which one is wrong, because first of all, you then identify the person. Second of all, that then might help to identify the victim, who's meant to remain anonymous. So I don't know what's actually happening with that case, but it's a very tricky area.
Yeah, I think that's something that both parties have a lot to lose. I don't think the media should be able to overstep that boundary.
No.
And it's the same thing with publishing, children's pictures and stuff like that. It's very sensitive.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the headline on the front of the Mail: can John Leslie's reputation ever recover? Well, I think the answer's no, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's a fickle business. Once your name is attached to something, it's very hard to shake it off.
Right. I mean, in his case, he does have a bit of a timeline. October 2002, wrongly identified on TV as the man who raped Ulrika Johnson. December 2002, arrested over claims of indecent assault in 1997, but charges are dropped. June 2008, arrested over a rape and assault allegation from 1995, which didn't go to court.
Yeah.
And it's all this historical stuff as well, isn't it? Because that's the other problem that we've seen in showbiz, generally speaking, over the years, that people have been accused of doing things, quite rightly sometimes accused, but in other cases not always. But the public seems to sort of want to believe the complainant.
Yeah,
all the
no,
time.
it's our natural instinct. You know, you want to kind of be on the side of the victim, because then you don't feel like a horrible person. But you know, we often forget that there's someone on the other side who hasn't actually been found guilty, who has a lot to lose, sometimes even more to lose.
Right.
And you know, I think that's a boundary that shouldn't be crossed at all.
No, and I suppose, I mean, it's difficult to legislate, I suppose, for it. In the sense that
no, it's fairly simple. Just
you know, there are plenty of people out there that will make false allegations as well.
Yeah, but the thing is, if stuff like that is amplified by the mainstream media, you know, there are people that could say, I hit a baby today. You know, that's fine. You can just say what you want. But you know, if it's not amplified by voices that are supposed to have credibility in society, it doesn't do as much damage.
But we do live now in times when you've got the sort of snoop brigade, haven't you?
Yeah.
Because they're being encouraged to snoop on each other by the government. So, I mean, you know, there's all sorts of people out there ready. I mean, if you become very well known, there'll be people watching you. And when they see you out in a restaurant, or if they see you out in a shop, if you're ever allowed to go out to another restaurant,
exactly.
You know, they might, you know, well, look at, we saw, you know, she said she didn't drink. We saw her drinking a bottle of wine on her own. It might not be true.
I mean, if you have evidence, everyone has a camera phone these days. So if you have evidence, that's where you kind of get tripped up. But I think with the whole like sort of sexual assault thing, there's 50% of this country is male. Yeah. There's a whole group of people that would actually support that as well, because they're often the ones that have a lot to lose. Yeah, you know.
I mean, an awful lot of footballers, of course, are in
exactly
that
Cristiano Ronaldo and stuff like that, who really didn't want to settle with that lunatic that was accusing him of rape. But
then, of course, you then get the other side of the battle, where you get people saying, "Oh, well, he paid her off." Yeah. So he must have been guilty.
You see, and that's the thing. It's very uncomfortable to be in that situation in the first place. We shouldn't be able to have any say on that. This man has children.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, one more story that I want to touch upon with you before we let you go. Climate change scientists take more work and leisure flights than colleagues in other fields. Now, who would have known such a thing? Now, this coincides with the apparent release of a new movie with Greta Thunberg in it.
Yeah, which I will not be seeing.
I won't be paying to see it, that's for sure. I mean, if somebody wants me to look at it just because they want me to look at it. But I mean, it's kind of unusual to release a movie when the cinemas are all closed as well. I mean, who's going to watch it?
There's that. I mean, and the movie industry is trying to find a way around that. I think they're increasing the prices of films so that if just one person watches it, kind of subsidizes two. Yeah. I don't know. That's something that I read about. I think the Greta Thunberg movie is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. What how did a 16-year-old autistic girl with virtually no education in science or what she's talking about become the voice of, you know, climate, I don't know, like fear mongering?
Is it not because you can see pollution or something like that, or see carbon in
the
air?
Yeah, in the air. You know, I just wish there was like, you know, a Japanese trans Muslim boy with Down syndrome to say climate change is not real, and they could duel out, because it's kind of effectively like battle of identity politics.
I put out a tweet about this that I wouldn't be watching the film, and so I got the usual kind of, you stop attacking a child. You know, apart from the fact she's now 17, which is not a child.
Far from a child.
You know, when you're 17, you can actually choose the method of whatever it is that you want to do in all sorts of different areas. You know, on your own without your parents, right? Yeah. But the problem I think as well is that, you know, people have sort of bought into this climate change thing. It's only really been interrupted by COVID. I mean, Boris Johnson seems incredibly sure that he wants to turn Britain into some green and pleasant land, and you know, a place full of wind farms and people cycling around everywhere.
Those ugly
things. It's never going to happen.
Yeah, and you know, Prince Philip is always telling. Is it Prince Philip?
Prince Charles.
Yeah, he's always like, we have 10 years, then we have 2 years, then we have 18 months. Right. It's just, you know, it's permeated all aspects of society, and we're not actually having an objective view of this. Yes, the climate is changing. Yes, human activity has a lot to do with it. You know, we need human ingenuity is infamous for being able to solve problems that we don't think we can solve. It should come down to that, not just, you know, making us pay more money to effectively an incompetent government. Right. Because that's what it is.
Well, all you've got to do is look around the streets of London, where Sadiq Khan has, thankfully, for the eco lobbyists, you know, managed to make loads and loads of cycle lanes to reduce congestion and to get rid of all the pollution. Guess what?
It's worsened.
It's actually worse pollution and worse congestion because now there's people stuck in traffic jams all day, pumping out terrible, horrible exhaust fumes.
And it actually makes me resent cyclists.
Well, it does.
So, I don't drive in London anymore because obviously of Sadiq Khan. But whenever I drive in London and I just get this close to hitting a cyclist, I'm like, ugh. I wouldn't feel bad, but I'm not going to do it.
No, I mean, I watch them every morning as I come into work, and there are some that adhere to the rules and they stop at the lights
they're
when
just
they're
a
red,
complete nuisance.
but there are always loads who do not, and there are loads who don't actually use the cycle lanes anyway. They just
I don't care whether they. I know this is a bit of a radical, but honestly, they're just a complete nuisance. If you're cycling in a congested city like London, you probably have a death wish.
Well, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I just gosh. Can't you go to Richmond Park or something?
Yeah, exactly. That would make a lot of sense. It really would.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Esther, great to see you again. Thank you very much indeed. We shall see you same time next week. Lots more for us to talk about, lots more for us to do. And of course, we want to take some of your calls as well. 0344 499 1000.